Have you ever been to a party that only exists after dark? The kind of place you only read about in novels or see in movies? The valedictorian, the hotshot young professional, the Ice Queen CEO, everyone you'd never expect to see letting loose is there. Anything can happen, and when the sun comes up, everyone goes home like it was all just a dream. My name is Jake Carter. I'm a college student. If you had to describe me, you'd probably go with consistently broke. So when my roommate Leo slid a flyer for a high-paying gig across my desk with a conspiratorial grin, it was kind of hard not to be interested. $500 an hour. Cash. They even throw in a late-night meal, Leo whispered, leaning in like he was sharing state secrets. Place is just a little exclusive. I eyed the words server for high-end private event, and then glanced at the address. It was in Crestview Bay, a waterfront neighborhood, so expensive I couldn't even afford the Uber ride to get there. High-end. I raised an eyebrow. How high-end are we talking? So high you couldn't see the top with a telescope, Leo said, puffing out his chest. My cousin's cousin works security there. Hook me up with the info. The people who go to these things, they're the 1%. All you have to do is keep your eyes down and your mouth shut. Serve some drinks, mix a few cocktails, and the money's yours. $500 an hour. A 5-hour shift would net me $2,500. That was enough to cover my rent and food for a month, with some leftovers sent back home. There was no way I could say no. That Friday night, I put on the crisp white shirt and black vest they required and walked into the sprawling, brightly lit mansion on the bay. The moment I pushed open the door, I finally understood what Leo meant by hand. The air was thick with the scent of perfume I couldn't name and cigars that probably cost more than my textbooks, all mixed with the low hum of a live jazz band. It felt like walking into a soft, decadent trap. The men wore tailored suits, their wrists flashing watches that could pay off my student loans. The women were a dazzling, competitive collection of beautiful people, each one looking like they'd just stepped off a magazine cover. My job was simple: stay behind the bar and mix whatever drinks the guests asked for, or weave through the crowd with a tray to collect empty glasses. The manager was a stern-looking, middle-aged guy who laid down the law. In here, you are invisible. You don't see anything you're not supposed to see. You don't hear anything you're not supposed to hear. And you sure as hell don't ask any questions. When the sun comes up, everything that happened here tonight has nothing to do with you. I nodded. I got it. I wasn't interested in the lives of these people anyway. I was only interested in my $2,500. The bar was the perfect vantage point for people watching. I mechanically shook a cocktail mixer, my eyes drifting over the crowd. That woman in the red dress was supposedly a rising starlet. She was plastered against some pot-bellied producer, laughing like he was the funniest man alive. But in the split second between laughs, I saw a flicker of pure disgust in her eyes. That kid in the corner, drowning himself in whiskey, was decked out in head-to-toe hypebeast gear. He looked like he owned the world, but he was secretly texting his mom under the table. Mom, not coming home tonight. Out with friends. Go to bed early. Everyone was wearing a mask, playing their part to perfection. Just then, the front doors opened again. A woman walked in. It was like the whole party held its breath. She wore a silver power suit, tailored so sharply it could cut glass. Her hair was pulled back in an elegant knot, showing off a long neck and a jawline that could have been carved from marble. Her expression was cold, a detached sort of chill that scanned the room like a queen surveying her territory. She was the type you admire from a distance, because getting any closer felt like a death wish. She radiated power. A few guys immediately swarmed her, holding out drinks with eager smiles. She just gave them a slight nod, accepting a glass of champagne, but only touching the rim to her lips without drinking. I looked away, going back to polishing a glass. A woman like that and a guy like me were in different galaxies. The party hit its stride, the energy ramping up. The manager sent me out to collect empty glasses. I kept my head down, tray in hand, carefully navigating the clusters of people, terrified of bumping into someone important. As I passed a quieter lounge area, I saw her, the woman in the silver suit. She was leaning back on a sofa, eyes closed, with a slight frown on her face. A sleazy-looking guy with too much product in his hair was sitting next to her, practically on top of her. His voice was low, but I could hear him clearly. Ms. Sterling, about this project. If you just give us the green light, Thompson Corp will be fully committed. Let me get you a drink, he said, reaching for a glass. She didn't open her eyes, just tilted her head away. Chad, I'm not feeling well tonight. I'm not drinking, she said. Her voice was as cold as her expression. Come on, Victoria, don't be like that. Just one drink, Chad persisted, his hand reaching for her shoulder. I was debating whether I should accidentally stumble past and interrupt when a powerful jolt of electricity shot up from my feet, straight to the top of my head. It felt like someone had jabbed me in the back with a taser. My entire body went numb. The tray in my hands tilted, and a dozen champagne flutes went cascading through the air. Crash! The sound of shattering glass exploded in the quiet corner. I froze, completely stunned. I'm so fired. The manager's angry face flashed in my mind. There goes my $2,500. Chad jumped to his feet, startled. What the hell is wrong with you? Are you blind? He yelled, pointing at me. I quickly bowed my head. I'm so sorry, sir. I didn't mean to, the rug. It slipped. I apologized over and over, kneeling to pick up the shards of glass. Just then, a cool, clear voice spoke from above me. Let go. I looked up, right into the eyes of the woman in the silver suit. They were still cold, but I didn't see the disgust or anger I expected. I was about to apologize again when a strange voice drilled its way into my brain. God, this idiot broke my train of thought. My heels are killing me. I just want to go home barefoot. And this Thompson creep is buzzing around me like a fly. I'm going to be sick if I have to stay here any longer. The voice. It was exactly like hers, but the tone was pissed off and impatient like a cornered cat. I froze, instinctively looking back at her. She still had that same icy expression, her lips pressed into a thin line, showing no emotion at all. Was I hearing things? Did that electric shock fry my brain? Seeing that she had spoken, Chad couldn't really keep yelling at a server. He sat back down with a huff, muttering, Victoria, you're too nice. People like this, the help. Who do you think you are? If it wasn't for that plot of land your dad's sitting on, I wouldn't give you the time of day. You look like an overgrown lump of dough. There was again, crystal clear, right in my ear. My head snapped up, and I stared at the woman, Victoria Sterling. She was sitting perfectly poised on the sofa, elegant and expressionless. But inside her head, she was hosting a one-woman roast. I could hear her thoughts. The realization made the hair on my arms stand up. I scrambled to clean up the glass, practically running away from the scene. Back at the bar, I poured myself a large glass of ice water and chugged it, trying to calm down. It had to be a hallucination. I was just overworked, too stressed. I took a deep breath, trying to push the bizarre experience out of my mind. But it wasn't a hallucination. When I handed a cocktail called an electric sapphire to the rising starlet, she gave me a sweet smile and said, thank you. And right on cue, another voice popped into my head. My face is going to freeze like this. What the hell is in this drink? Is my hair going to fall out? No, keep it together. The cameras are still around. I have to get my publicist to buy this photo tomorrow and Photoshop the crow's feet around my eyes. My hand trembled, and I nearly spilled the drink. I looked over at a business mogul holding court with a group of investors. He was saying, the future of our economy, in my personal opinion, lies in the synthesis of artificial intelligence and renewable energy. But what I heard was, I can't keep this up. I memorized that line from CNN yesterday. I never should have started this bluff. What was my daughter's homework again? Oh, right, make a clay rabbit. What color Play-Doh should I use? My entire world had split into two different versions. One was the glamorous, polite, high society reality. The other was an invisible world, overflowing with sarcastic comments, hidden desires, anxieties, and trivial problems. I felt like an audience member who had stumbled backstage and seen all the actors with their makeup off. This was insane, and it seemed like that bizarre electric shock was the cause of it all. My gaze drifted back to the corner, to Victoria Sterling. She was on her feet now, with the lump of dough Chad still chattering away at her side. Her face was a mask of ice, but the impatience in her eyes was about to spill over. Is he ever going to shut up? 3 minutes. I can stand him for 3 more minutes. If he's not gone in 3 minutes, I'm dumping this champagne on his head. Listening to her mental countdown, I almost wanted to laugh. So this Ice Queen was actually a walking volcano on the inside. Chad, completely oblivious to the death clock ticking in her head, was making his final push. Victoria, please just do me this one favor. Come to the private lounge. We can discuss the details. Discuss your details? Your details are getting me drunk and taking me to a hotel. Do I look like I was born yesterday? Victoria's inner voice was dripping with contempt, but her face remained professionally polite. I am sorry, chat. I'm really just a bit tired. Just 10 minutes. He grabbed her wrist. Victoria's brow furrowed. Get your hands off me. So greasy. Help. Someone save me. I want to go home and pet my cat. Her mind was screaming. Watching her, backed into a corner, filled with disgust, but unable to lash out because of business and professionalism, something in me shifted. Maybe it was her silent scream for help that got to me. Or maybe I just really didn't like Chad. I took a deep breath, picked up a tray, and placed a single, brightly colored cocktail on it. I started walking toward them. This time, I didn't keep my head down. I stared at the back of Chad's head, calculating the distance and the angle. 3, 2, 1, whoa! I slipped, my body lurching forward. The tray flew from my hands. The bright cocktail sailed through the air in a perfect arc, landing squarely down the back of Chad's designer suit jacket. The world went silent. Chad froze. He could feel the cold, sticky liquid trickling down his spine. Slowly, very slowly, he turned around. His eyes were bloodshot with rage, and he glared at me. You have got to be. I immediately switched into panic mode, my face a mask of terror. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Mr. Thompson. It was an accident. Your foot. You tripped me. His foot was a good 2 feet away from mine, but he instinctively looked down at his feet, and so did everyone else. In a place like this, being accused by a server of tripping him, even if it wasn't true, was enough to put him in an impossibly awkward position. He couldn't exactly shout, "No, I didn't." That would be so undignified. Chad's face turned the color of a plum. He pointed a trembling finger at me. Victoria stood to the side, a tiny crack appearing in her icy facade as she watched the chaos unfold. I heard her inner voice. Yes, nice one. This kid's got talent. Ha ha ha. Look at Thompson's face, like he just swallowed a bug. Awesome. Inside, she was popping champagne and setting off fireworks. But on the outside, she remained the picture of cool professionalism. She pulled a tissue from her purse and handed it to Chad, her tone flat. Chad, look at this mess. Why don't you go get that taken care of? You'll catch a cold if you stay in wet clothes. Her words gave him an exit. Chad shot me a look that said, I'm going to kill you, snatched the tissue, and stormed off toward the restroom. Crisis averted. I let out a long breath, my back drenched in sweat. You. The cool voice was right in front of me. I looked up. Victoria Sterling was looking at me. What's your name? She asked. Jake Carter, I answered honestly. She nodded, then took a business card from her clutch. She pulled out a pen and wrote a string of numbers on the back. This is my personal number, she said, handing me the card. Call me tomorrow. I numbly took the card. It read, Victoria Sterling, Director of Investments, Starlight Capital. This kid is interesting. Quick on his feet, and he's got guts. I happen to need a new assistant. Maybe I'll give him a try. It had saved me from having to deal with all these flies. I held the card, still warm from her fingertips, my mind a chaotic mess. It looked like one real accident, and one very intentional one, had just thrown me into a world I had no business being in. The next morning, I stood outside my dorm for half an hour, staring at the business card. Leo walked by, a donut in his mouth, and slapped me on the back. What's up? You look like you're trying to solve world hunger. Bad night at the gig. It was great. Too great, I said with a grimace. It was more than great. It was life-falteringly weird. I flashed the card in front of his face. Starlight Capital? Director of Investments? Victoria Sterling. Leo's eyes went wide, and he snatched it from my hand. Dude, Jake, you went to serve drinks and came back with a sugar mama's number? She's not a sugar mama. Don't be gross, I said, taking the car back. She was impressed with my work. Thinks I might have potential. Potential? Leo gave me a look that said, I don't believe you for a second. Potential for what? What kind of job is she going to give a college kid with zero experience? He had me there. Yeah, what kind of job? In her head, she'd thought assistant, but why would she think I was qualified? All because I spilled a drink on someone? It didn't make any sense. Unless she knew I did it on purpose. That thought sent a chill down my spine. If she knew it was intentional, then her reasons for contacting me weren't so simple. I replayed her inner voice in my head. This kid is interesting. Quick on his feet, and he's got guts. She admired my quick thinking and my nerve. I stared at the number on the card and finally hit dial. It rang twice before she picked up. Her cool, crisp voice came through the line. Hello, Ms. Sterling. Hi, it's Jake Carter, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I know. She didn't sound surprised at all. 10 M. Starlight Capital, 23rd floor. Tell the receptionist you're here to see me. And then she hung up. Short, sweet, and to the point. Not a single wasted word. I looked at my phone a little stunned. This woman really was committed to the whole Ice Queen thing. The Starlight Capital building was a glittering glass skyscraper in the heart of downtown, the kind of place that screamed money. Wearing my one and only decent button-down shirt, I stood at the entrance feeling like a hobbit who'd wandered into a city of giants. I took a deep breath, walked into the marble lobby, and gave Victoria's name to the woman at the front desk. The receptionist gave me a quick, subtle once-over, but her smile was professional as she scanned a key card to let me through the security gate. The 23rd floor. Victoria's office. It was more minimalist than I expected. A massive floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the city, a single black desk, a bookshelf. Nothing else. She was at her desk, reviewing a document, and only looked up when I walked in. Sit, she said, gesturing to the chair opposite her. I sat down, feeling stiff and out of place. She slid a contract across the desk. Read this. I picked it up. It was an employment contract. The position was special assistant. 3-month trial period. Monthly salary. I counted the zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, $22,000. $20,000 a month. During a trial period. I felt the air leave my lungs. My entire monthly budget was $2,000. This was 10 times that. Ms. Sterling, I couldn't believe it. Your duties are simple, she said, her voice flat. You will accompany me to certain social functions when required. Your job is to shield me from unnecessary complications. I got it immediately. By unnecessary complications, she meant flies like Chad Thompson Jr. She wanted to hire me as her human shield. Why me? I had to ask. She looked at me, her eyes sharp, like she could see right through me. Because you handled yourself well last night, she said. You're observant. You know the most effective way to solve a problem. And you don't seem greedy. My stomach dropped. She had no idea. I wasn't observant. I was a mind reader. I'd heard her silent cry for help and acted on it. And I didn't seem greedy only because I knew what she was thinking and didn't try to push my luck. This whole thing was a massive misunderstanding based on a secret I could never tell her. I fell silent. She seemed to mistake my silence for hesitation. I heard her inner voice. Is that not enough? 20 grand is a lot for a college kid. Then again, he really saved me last night. Thompson probably won't bother me for a while. If he can actually solve my social problems, it's worth the price. She didn't say a word, just pulled another document from her drawer and pushed it toward me. It was a supplementary agreement. If you perform well, there will be quarterly project bonuses, she said coolly. I looked at the agreement, then back at her. She thought I was weighing the pros and cons, calculating the value of the job. She had no idea I was thinking about something else entirely. If I took this job, I'd have to be by her side constantly, listening to her inner monologue, all while pretending I knew nothing and playing the part of the brilliant, intuitive assistant. It was like playing a game with cheat codes enabled, forever, but a $20,000 monthly salary. It was too tempting to resist. My mom's medical bills, my brother's tuition, the mortgage back home. The weight of it all was crushing me. I'll do it, I said, looking up at her, my decision made. She seemed to relax, though her face didn't show it. Done. No more awkward small talk with idiots. Her inner voice was practically giddy with relief. I picked up the pen and signed my name on the contract. As of today, I was the special assistant to Victoria Sterling, Director of Investments at Starlight Capital. A counterfeit assistant who got the job by reading his boss's mind. My first day on the job was incredibly quiet. Victoria gave me a desk just outside her office. My entire job was to sit there and be on standby. She, on the other hand, was a machine operating at full throttle. A constant stream of meetings, documents, and phone calls. She spoke with a speed and clarity that was terrifying. I sat outside, listening to her switch between 3 different languages, and felt like a complete waste of space. Occasionally, through the gaps in her intense focus, I'd catch a stray thought. What should I have for lunch? Tacos? No, I'm meeting a client this afternoon, the onions. Spicy ramen? No, I'll break out. God, it's hard being this good looking. The ROI on this project is wrong. Who built this data model? Fire them. I miss my cat. I wonder if Sudi is eating properly at home. While I was Googling how to be a good assistant to a director of investments, I silently filed away these fragments of information. Tacos, ramen, onions, pimples, cat, soti. Those words seemed so disconnected from the woman in the designer suit with the killer aura sitting just a few feet away. At 3 in the afternoon, she finally wrapped up a video conference. She pinched the bridge of her nose and leaned back in her chair, looking exhausted. Jake, she called. Yes. I was on my feet in an instant. Go down to the cafe. Give me an Americano. Black. No sugar. Right away. I was about to leave when an idea struck me. I paused. Ms. Sterling, I said, testing the waters. Are you feeling all right? Your stomach, I mean. All that iced coffee can't be good for you. Maybe. I could get you a hot oat milk latte instead. Why did I say that? Because during her meeting, I'd heard a fleeting thought. Stomach's acting up again. Damn it, I shouldn't have had that iced coffee this morning. She didn't know that I knew. She would just think it was the thoughtful concern of a diligent new hire. Sure enough, Victoria looked up, a hint of surprise in her eyes. How did he know my stomach was bothering me? Her mind was full of questions. I looked down, affecting a slightly embarrassed expression. Just a guess. You don't look so great today, and I saw you pressing on your stomach. My mom has stomach problems, and she does the same thing. I brought my mom into it. I was pulling out all the stops to make this lie work. Victoria's expression softened. Oh, so that's it. He's pretty observant. Her guard, it seemed, had lowered just a tiny bit. An oat milk latte then, she said quietly. Thank you. I felt like I'd just been granted a pardon and practically ran out of there. Sitting in the cafe downstairs, sipping my Coke, I felt mentally drained. This job was more demanding than studying for my finals. I wasn't just playing the part of competent assistant. I had to be a mind-reading psychic, and then I had to come up with a perfectly plausible excuse for every single one of my psychic insights. This wasn't a $20,000 a month job. This was a tryout for the Academy Awards. That evening, I got a call from Victoria. Be downstairs in 30 minutes. There's a gala. Understood. This was it. My main job. The human shield was reporting for duty. I changed into a suit and stood outside the Starlight Capitol building, watching as Victoria emerged from the elevator. She'd changed into a black, off-the-shoulder gown, her makeup more dramatic than it had been during the day. But she was radiating a low-pressure system of stay away from me. I didn't need to hear her thoughts to know she was cursing someone out in her head. I got in her car, a white Porsche. The air freshener smelled nice, but the atmosphere was heavy. Tonight's gala is important, she said as she drove. The host is Mr. Wallace from the Titan Group. We need to secure his investment interest. There will be a lot of people there. Stick close to me. Got it. If someone tries to offer me a drink, you run interference. If someone starts talking nonsense, you change the subject. If someone tries to ask me for a private meeting, you tell them my schedule is full. Okay, I said like a robot. She glanced at me, seemingly annoyed by my brief answers. Is this guy going to be reliable? He's acting like a block of wood. She was having second thoughts. I cleared my throat, deciding to be proactive and show her the value of her special assistant. Ms. Sterling, I said, I did some research on Titan Group's Mr. Wallace this afternoon. He's 62, has 2 sons and a daughter. His biggest hobby is chess. I heard he was an amateur champion when he was younger, and he absolutely hates it when people mention his youngest son, who was arrested for drug possession 2 years ago. After I finished, the car went silent. Only the GPS voice filled the void. Victoria's hands seemed to tighten on the steering wheel. She whipped her head around to look at me, her eyes filled with shock and suspicion. How does he know all that? Even about Wallace's son? That's an open secret in our circles, but how would a college kid find that out? The tsunami of her shock washed over me. I had anticipated this reaction. I kept my face calm, but my mind was racing to invent a believable lie. I have a high school friend who's an intern at Titan Group. He overheard some of the executives gossiping one day, I said. I thought it might be useful, so I remembered it. The excuse was a mix of truth and fiction, just plausible enough. Even if she looked into it, she'd hit a dead end. Victoria stared at me for a long time, so long I thought she was going to kick me out of the car. Finally, she looked back at the road. "Good work," she said, the words squeezed out from between her teeth. But I heard a completely different tone in her head. "This kid, he's got something, not just a pretty face. Looks like that 20 grand a month won't be a waste after all." The car drove smoothly toward the hotel where the gala was being held. I looked out at the glittering city lights, knowing that tonight was my first big test. And my secret weapon was the backstage pass to Victoria's mind. The gala was even more formal and even more fake than the private party. Everyone wore a perfectly calibrated smile and spoke in carefully rehearsed platitudes. The moment Victoria walked in, she became the center of attention. Countless eyes turned toward her, filled with curiosity, admiration, and jealousy. She moved through the crowd like a black swan, elegant and perfectly at ease. But I could hear her thoughts. The bald guy on the left is Lou from Apex Properties. He tried to get handsy with me at our last dinner. Blacklisted. The woman in the pink dress on the right is an up-and-coming designer. I should talk to her. We have a consumer project that might be a good fit. God, my cheeks are so sore from smiling. Where the hell is Jake? I immediately appeared behind her with 2 glasses of champagne, handing one to her at the perfect moment. "Your champagne, Ms. Sterling." She took the glass, giving me a look that said it's about time. Soon enough, people started to swarm. "Ms. Sterling, I've heard so much about you. I'm Mark Zhang from Omni Electronics," a man in gold-rimmed glasses said, extending his hand enthusiastically. Just as Victoria was about to reach out, her inner voice rang in my head. "Who is this guy? Don't know him. Omni Electronics? Never heard of it. Not interested." I instantly stepped forward, positioning myself between them with a polite but distant smile. "Mr. Zhang, a pleasure. I'm Jay Carter, Ms. Sterling's assistant. Her throat is a little sore tonight. The doctor advised her to speak as little as possible. If you have something you'd like to discuss, you can talk to me first." Mark's smile froze for a second, but he extended his hand to me instead. I shook it, then smoothly guided him to the side. "Mr. Zhang, our firm has been looking into some tech sector projects recently. What is Omni's primary focus?" I had successfully rescued her from a pointless conversation. She shot me a grateful look before turning to her next target. And so it went. I was like a precision radar, filtering out everyone she didn't want to deal with while also feeding her any information she needed. For instance, when she was talking to a middle-aged man, I heard her think, "Who is this guy again? He looks so familiar. I can't place him. Awkward." I immediately leaned in and whispered in her ear, "Ms. Sterling, that's Vice President Miller from Apex Industries. You met him at last month's summit." Her expression didn't change a bit as she seamlessly continued the conversation. "Mr. Miller, last month's summit was so hectic, I feel like we barely had a chance to talk." Mr. Miller looked flattered and eagerly engaged her in conversation. Later, when a young trust fund kid tried to ask her for a drink after the gala, I heard her internal roar, "A drink with you? Get lost, you idiot. Scram." I immediately pulled out my phone and held it to my ear. "Yes? Okay, Ms. Sterling, I understand. The conference call with the New York office has been moved up? Okay, I'll let you know the details right away." Then I turned to the kid with an apologetic look. "So sorry about that, sir, but Ms. Sterling has a very important international conference call coming up. I don't think she'll have the time." By the end of the night, I had played the part of secretary, a bodyguard, an encyclopedia, and a human shield. I felt like the Academy owed me an Oscar. When the gala ended, Victoria had successfully scheduled a meeting with Mr. Wallace from the Titan Group for the following week. She seemed to be in a good mood, even if her face was still an icy mask. The ride back to the office was quiet. "Thank you for tonight," she said suddenly. I was a little taken aback. "It's just my job." "No," she shook her head. "You did a better job than any of my previous assistants. Way better. It's like you can read my mind." I almost laughed out loud at that. Mind reader? If only she knew. "I'm just good at reading people," I said modestly. She didn't say anything else, just focused on driving. As we neared the office building, she suddenly asked, "Where do you live? I'll give you a ride." No, that's okay." I waved my hands frantically. "The subway is super convenient for me. Are you kidding me? Let her drive me back to my crappy college dorm?" My whole elite assistant persona would be shattered. He doesn't live downtown, right? He's a student. Probably rents a place. Then I'll cover your cab fare, she said, pulling a few $100 bills from her wallet and holding them out to me. Ms. Sterling, you really don't have to. Take it, she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. You earned it. I had no choice but to accept the money. After I got out of the car, I watched her Porsche disappear into the night, the cash crinkling in my hand. It all felt a little surreal. This job was mentally exhausting, but the rewards were real. More importantly, I think, I was starting to enjoy it. Watching this unbreakable ice queen, who is so formidable in public, expose all her vulnerabilities, frustrations, and true emotions to me through her thoughts. It was a strange feeling, like I had discovered a secret treasure that belonged only to me. I was about to head to the subway when my phone rang. It was Leo. Jake, where are you? Get back to the dorm now. It's an emergency. Leo's voice was frantic. My stomach sank. What happened? It's your brother, Kevin. He got into a fight. The cops took him to the station. When I got to the police precinct, my younger brother, Kevin, was slumped on a bench, his head hanging low. He had a bruise on his cheek and a cut on his lip. Standing next to him was a punk in a loud Hawaiian shirt, half a head taller than him, arrogantly telling his side of the story to an officer. Officer, you gotta be my witness. All I did was ask to borrow his phone, and he starts cussing me out. He threw the first punch. My brother's head snapped up, his eyes red with fury. You're lying. You weren't borrowing it. You were trying to take it. And you were running your mouth about my mom. So what if I was? Your mom. Shut your mouth. I lunged forward, grabbing the punk by the collar, my eyes blazing. Jake. Kevin looked both shocked and relieved to see me. An officer quickly separated us. Hey, knock it off. This is a police station. Settle down. I let go, taking a deep breath to calm myself down. I walked over to Kevin and crouched down, my heart aching as I looked at his bruised face. What happened? Kevin's eyes welled up, his voice cracking. Jake, he tried to steal my phone. When I wouldn't let him, he started talking trash about us, saying really awful stuff. I couldn't take it. I understood. My brother wasn't a great student and could be a bit of a rebel, but the one thing he couldn't stand was hearing anyone insult our family. I stood up and faced the officer. Officer, this needs to be investigated properly. You can't just take his word for it. Are there any security cameras around here? The officer nodded. We're checking the footage. But the other party is also injured, so you're both at fault here. The best thing would be to settle this between yourselves. The punk's ears perked up. Settle? Fine by me. Pay up. Medical bills, pain, and suffering. $5,000. We're not done here. Looking at his smug, thuggish face, I felt my fists clench again. 5,000? He might as well just rob a bank. The salary I just gotten in advance on had already gone to rent and my mom's medication. I didn't have anywhere near that amount left. As my head throbbed, my phone rang. It was Victoria. I stepped away to answer, trying to make my voice sound normal. Hello, Ms. Sterling. Where are you? She sounded slightly annoyed. Why didn't you answer my text? I looked at my phone and saw her message from a few minutes ago. Home yet? Sorry, Ms. Sterling. Something came up. What is it? My brother. He got into a fight. We're at the police station. I didn't want to lie. There was no point. The line was silent for a few seconds. I was fully prepared for her to lecture me about not being able to handle my own family problems. Instead, she said, send me the address. I was stunned. What? I'm coming over. No, please don't. I said, panicking. Ms. Sterling, it's a small thing. I can handle it. You don't need to trouble yourself. Her coming to a police station, seeing my messy, chaotic life. What would happen to my elite assistant image then? Are you questioning my decision? Her voice turned cold. He definitely doesn't want you to see him like this. So proud. Her inner voice was brutally accurate. I had no response. I sent her the address. About 20 minutes later, a white Porsche pulled up aggressively in front of the precinct. Victoria stepped out of the car. She was still wearing her black evening gown from the gala, with her suit jacket thrown over her shoulders. Under the dim, yellow light of the station, she looked completely out of place. The entire precinct went quiet as she walked in. Every single person's eyes were fixed on her. The punk in the Hawaiian shirt was practically drooling. Victoria didn't look at anyone. She walked straight to me. What's the situation? She asked. I quickly explained what happened. She listened, nodded, and then turned to face the punk. She walked slowly, the clicking of her heels on the linoleum floor echoing like a metronome. Under the force of her aura, the punk instinctively took a step back. You said you wanted 5,000? Victoria asked. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried weight. Why, yeah, that's right, he stammered, puffing out his chest. For medical bills and pain and suffering? She asked again. Exactly. Victoria nodded. Then, I heard her cold, calculating inner monologue. Injury report will show minor contusions. Police mediation would be $1,000, max. This is extortion. Okay, you want to play? Let's play. She looked at the punk and suddenly smiled. It was a faint smile, but it was terrifying. 5,000 is too little, she said. Everyone froze. Me, my brother Kevin, all of us. The punk was dumbfounded. My employee's brother hurt you. That was our fault, Victoria said, her tone sincere. How could $5,000 possibly compensate for your physical and emotional trauma? Let's make it 50,000. F 50,000. The punk's eyes lit up, a flash of greed in them. Yes, 50,000, Victoria said, taking out a checkbook and a pen from her purse. However, we can't just settle this privately. Then what? We'll go through the proper legal channels. Victoria's gaze turned sharp as a razor. I'll hire the best lawyers. We'll get you a full medical evaluation to assess all of your damages. Whatever the court decides we owe, we'll pay. If the court awards you more than 50,000, I'll pay you 100,000. But if the court awards you less than 50,000, say, for example, 1,000, she paused, a cold smirk playing on her lips, then you would be guilty of extortion. A felony charge like that could get you a few years in prison. The color drained from the punk's face. You could have heard a pin drop in the precinct. The greed and arrogance on his face were instantly replaced by terror and panic. He looked at Victoria, then at the police officer next to him, his lips trembling, unable to form a single word. Extortion? Prison? He was just a street punk who bullied students for pocket money. He had never encountered anything like this before. Victoria's 1-2 punch had hit him right where it hurt. The officer cleared his throat and said to the punk, "The lady is right. If this involves extortion, it becomes a criminal matter." The punk's legs nearly gave out. He looked at Victoria like she was the devil herself. And no, I don't want 50,000, he stammered. I don't want any money. We could just drop it. Settle it. You want to settle now? Victoria raised an eyebrow. Too late. I don't like being threatened. Trying to scam my people? Not on my watch. I'm going to teach this little punk a lesson about how the world really works. Her inner voice was pure, unfiltered queen. I stood behind her, watching her, a mix of emotions swirling inside me. This woman was so damn cool. The punk was on the verge of tears. Mom, I'm sorry. I really am. I don't want money. I'll apologize to him. Please, just let me go. He actually turned to my brother and bowed. I am sorry. I shouldn't have tried to take your phone, and I shouldn't have said what I said. Victoria glanced at him, then turned to the officer. Officer, since he has apologized and my brother's injuries are not severe, perhaps we can. The officer, happy to have this resolved, nodded. Since both parties have agreed to settle, you can sign the paperwork, we'll give them a formal warning, and you'll be free to go. And just like that, with a few calm words, Victoria had defused the entire situation. Without spending a dime, she'd even gotten an apology. As we walked out of the precinct, Kevin trailed behind me, not daring to breathe too loudly. He stuck a glance at Victoria walking ahead of us, then leaned in and whispered, "Jake, is that my future sister-in-law?" I almost choked. I slapped my hand over his mouth. Don't be an idiot. That's my boss. Your boss. Kevin looked skeptical. Your boss drives a Porsche to bail you out of jail in the middle of the night? And is that much of a badass? I didn't bother trying to explain. Victoria stopped and looked back at us. Get in, she said. Kevin and I climbed into the back of the Porsche like two kids who had been sent to the principal's office. The car started, and without asking for directions, she began driving toward my university. It seemed she had already figured out where I lived. The atmosphere in the car was painfully awkward. Kevin was scared of her, and I was just embarrassed. Thank you, Ms. Sterling, I said, breaking the silence. Tonight, if it wasn't for you, you're one of my people. She cut me off, her tone even, and I protect my people. It's a principle of mine. I am fiercely protective. She added in her head. A warmth spread through my chest. One of my people. Those words gave me a strange sense of belonging. Did he start that fight because of you? Victoria suddenly asked, her eyes meeting mine in the rearview mirror. I was confused for a second. Kevin mumbled beside me. He was talking trash about Jake. Said he was a kept man, being paid for by some sugar mama. My face flushed bright red. Victoria's hands tightened on the steering wheel for a fraction of a second. Kept man? Sugara mama. Are they talking about me? Her inner voice held a note of amusement. I wanted the ground to swallow me whole. Ms. Sterling, don't listen to him. He wasn't wrong, Victoria said calmly. In a way, I am keeping you. She used the word keeping. I was completely floored. I could see Kevin out of the corner of my eye, his eyes wide as saucers, his jaw on the floor. Just messing with him. He's kind of cute when he blushes. I heard Victoria's mischievous inner thought. I nearly passed out. Lady, you're the ice queen. What happened to your brand? You can't just joke about things like that. The car pulled up in front of my dorm. I grabbed Kevin and practically scrambled out of the car. Wait, Victoria called out. She reached over to the passenger seat, grabbed a bag, and handed it to me. This is for your brother. I took it. It was a first aid kit, fully stocked with antiseptic, bandages, cotton swabs, and pain relief spray. She had thought of everything. And this, she said, handing me an envelope. I'm advancing you this month's salary. Take care of things at home. I held the thick envelope, speechless. Ms. Sterling, don't make me repeat myself, she said, looking at me. Go on. I had no choice but to take it. Thank you, Ms. Sterling, I said, and I meant it. Yeah, Jake, thank your sister thank your boss. Kevin whispered beside me. I shot him a death glare. Back in the dorm, Leo and the guys crowded around, full of questions. I ignored them, sat Kevin down, and started cleaning his cuts. Jake, is she really just your boss? Kevin asked, still not convinced. Yes, she's way too good to you, man. Yeah, she was. So good didn't feel real. I looked at the fancy first aid kit and the thick envelope on my desk, my thoughts a tangled mess. Why was she being so good to me? Was it just because I could block drinks for her and handle her social problems? Or was there another reason? I lay in bed that night, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. My mind was filled with images of Victoria. Her icy expression and her colorful, sarcastic inner monologue. Her ruthless efficiency in a crisis and her quiet thoughtfulness in preparing a first aid kit. This woman was a puzzle, and I was holding the only key with no idea what was behind the door. In the days that followed, a subtle chemistry began to brew between Victoria and me. She was still the high and mighty ice queen, still barked orders at me. Jake, coffee. Jake, the file. Jake, car keys. But now, I could hear the different emotions hidden beneath her flat tone. I'm so thirsty. I could really go for one of those oat milk lattes he got me last time. Who wrote this report? The numbers don't add up. I'll just have Jake double-check it. He's more detail-oriented than those idiots. Ugh, I don't want to drive. I'll make Jake do it. And so, I would happen to bring her the oat milk latte she was craving. I would happen to flag the incorrect data in a file just before she lost her temper. I would happen to offer to take the keys when she was looking tired. The look in her eyes when she saw me changed from surprise to something closer to reliance. The way her colleagues looked at me changed, too. It went from that's the new boy toy Victoria hired to that's Mr. Sterling's impossibly competent assistant. They had no idea that my competence was all just one big cheat. One afternoon, Victoria had a meeting with an important client, a notoriously difficult investor named Mr. Henderson. Before they left, she was pacing her office, looking anxious. This old fox, Henderson, is impossible. The last 3 investment directors who met with him got eaten alive. How am I supposed to win him over? Watching her, I felt a familiar impulse. Maybe I could use my ability to give her a serious advantage. Ms. Sterling. I knocked on her door frame. What is it? About Mr. Henderson. I might have a different angle we could try. She stopped pacing and looked at me, her eyes narrowed with doubt. You? I nodded, steeling myself. I heard that, Mr. Henderson's wife has been stressed about getting their daughter into a good school district. I happen to have a distant cousin who works for the school board. Maybe he could be of some help. Of course, that was a complete lie. The truth was, I'd been in her office the day before when she was on the phone with another director who had mentioned it in passing. Victoria hadn't paid any attention to the information at the time, but I had. Victoria's eyes lit up. He even knows about that? How extensive is this kid's network? Her shock gave me a surge of satisfaction. Is that information reliable? She asked, her tone serious. It should be, I said, feigning confidence. But we can't just bring it up directly. It'll make us look too opportunistic and might put him on the defensive. So what are you suggesting? We can let him know indirectly that we have this connection. I laid out my plan. At dinner, you can steer the conversation toward the challenges of raising kids, then casually mention that I happen to have a connection in that world. Just a hint. Let him be the one to come to us. Victoria stared at me in silence for a long time. Her expression shifted from doubt to scrutiny, and finally to a complex kind of admiration. Jake, she said, are you really just a college student? My heart skipped a beat, but I managed a small smile. Doesn't matter where you come from, Miss Sterling, as long as you get the job done. This kid, he gets more and more interesting. That was her final verdict. Dinner with Mr. Henderson was at a private, upscale club. He was just as they said, a smiling tiger. He was perfectly pleasant, but every word out of his mouth was a trap. Victoria sparred with him for an hour, but couldn't gain any ground. Just as the atmosphere was getting tense, I put our plan into motion. I accidentally spilled a little tea on Victoria's sleeve. Oh, I'm so sorry, Ms. Sterling, I said, rushing to dab at it. Victoria shot me a glare that was so convincing it could have been real. You were so clumsy. Mr. Henderson chuckled from across the table. It's all right, it's all right. These things happen. As I fussed over her sleeve, I mumbled, just loud enough for everyone to hear, it's all my cousin's fault. He made me go out celebrating last night for his daughter getting into that magnet school. I'm so hungover. It's crazy how competitive it is for kids these days. People would kill for a spot in a good elementary school. Mr. Henderson's smile faltered for a split second. The way he looked at me changed. Victoria picked up her cue perfectly. Your cousin? The one who works for the school system? Yeah, I said, scratching my head as if I were annoyed. He's not a big shot or anything, just some administrator at the city school board. But I guess he has some say in the whole zoning and districting thing. Then I shut up and went back to cleaning her sleeve like a clumsy assistant who had said too much. But out of the corner of my eye, I saw Mr. Henderson's fingers tapping lightly on the table. He was thinking. Victoria never mentioned the topic again, smoothly changing the subject. At the end of the dinner, Mr. Henderson shook Victoria's hand with 10 times the enthusiasm he'd had when we arrived. Ms. Sterling, a true talent. And your assistant here, very sharp. We must do this again sometime, my treat. After we saw him off, Victoria and I sat in the car and shared a knowing smile. We both knew we'd sealed the deal. Jake, Victoria said, looking at me with undisguised admiration. You were the hero tonight. Name your reward. Anything you want. Should I give him a raise? A watch? Or maybe. She was running through a list of options in her head. I looked in her shining eyes and, on a crazy impulse, said something that shocked even me. I don't want a reward, I said. I just want you to have dinner with me. Not a business dinner. Just the two of us. The car fell silent. I could feel my heart hammering against my ribs, so loud I was sure she could hear it. I was insane. I had just asked out my boss. Victoria was stunned. She looked at me, her eyes filled with surprise, curiosity, and a flicker of something I couldn't quite read. Panic? Is he asking me out? For the first time, her inner voice was filled with a question. I regretted it instantly. The second the words left my mouth, I wanted to take them back. Was I to ask her out? I was her assistant. She was my boss. There was an unbridgeable gap between us. It was reckless, presumptuous. She was probably thinking I'd let my success go to my head, that I didn't know my place. I braced myself for a cold remark, maybe even a threat to dock my pay. I stared down at my hands, unable to meet her eyes, just waiting for the verdict. The silence stretched on, thick and heavy. I could hear her steady breathing and my own frantic heartbeat. Just when I thought she was about to explode, she spoke. Okay, just one word. My head snapped up. I couldn't believe what I'd heard. She agreed. She was still looking ahead, her profile softened by the passing streetlights. What do you want to eat? She asked, her tone unreadable. My mind was a complete blank. Anything is fine. He's got guts, but he chickens out at the last second. I heard her inner critique. My face grew hot. I mean, I'm good with whatever. Whatever you like, Ms. Sterling. I don't care, she shot back. And just like that, the ball was back in my court. This was officially the most difficult assignment of my life. Plan a dinner for two for a woman whose preferences I didn't know, but whose every critical thought I could hear. If I messed this up, I was probably fired. My brain went into overdrive, pulling up every scrap of information I'd ever gathered from her inner monologue. Tacos? No. Feels too much like a work lunch. Spicy ramen? Too casual. A steakhouse? She seems to think it's overrated. Sushi? I heard her complain about a place being not fresh once. My head was spinning. Then, I remembered a tiny detail I'd almost forgotten. One day, when she skipped lunch, she was watching a food vlogger on her computer. The vlogger was at a hidden, high-end restaurant that served modern American fusion cuisine. I'd heard her think at the time, that looks good, but so far away, and you have to book in advance. Too much trouble. That was it. Ms. Sterling, I said, clearing my throat, trying to sound casual. I heard about this great little private kitchen on the west side of town. The atmosphere is supposed to be really quiet, and the food is incredible. I don't know if you'd be interested. She glanced at me. How's he know about that place? There she went again, getting suspicious. I quickly followed up. A friend of mine went and recommended it. He said you have to book it in advance, so I already went ahead and made a reservation. If you don't want to go, I can just cancel it. I had laid it all out, leaving her with a simple yes or no. It made me look thoughtful without being pushy. I was a genius. Victoria was silent for a few seconds. That place is fine, she said. The knot in my stomach finally loosened. The restaurant was in an old, converted mansion with a small courtyard and only a handful of tables. It was just as elegant and serene as I'd hoped. By the time we arrived, it was dark. The courtyard was lit with warm, yellow lights, creating a perfect atmosphere. This was the first time we had ever sat together, just the two of us, outside of a work setting. Without our professional roles to hide behind, the air was a little awkward. I had no idea what to say. She seemed a little uncomfortable, too, her fingers tracing the rim of her water glass. It's so quiet. I should probably say something. Talk about work? No, too boring. The weather? Too stupid. Her mind was just as stuck as mine. Knowing that she was nervous, too, somehow made me feel better. Even the Ice Queen had her moments of social anxiety. Ms. Sterling, I said, starting first. Thank you for today. With the Henderson deal. If you hadn't been there leading the charge, I never would have had the nerve to pull off a stunt like that. I gave the credit back to her. She glanced at me, and I thought I saw the corner of her mouth twitch into a smile. You deserve the credit too, she said. I just gave you the platform. He's pretty smooth. The food arrived, each dish a work of art. I served her a piece of the slow-roasted pork belly, the dish her eyes had lingered on the longest in the video. Ms. Sterling, you should try this. She froze for a second, looking at the piece of meat in her bowl. How did he know this is what I wanted most? Another question mark popped up in her head. I smiled. Just a guess. You worked so hard today, I figured you could use some comfort food. She didn't say anything, just quietly ate the pork. We talked a lot that night. About work, about movies, about her cat, Sudi. I discovered that underneath the Director of Investments title, she was just a normal person. She would secretly smile at a funny meme. Her eyes would light up when she talked about a movie she loved, and she would worry about whether her cat was eating properly. Her cold, hard exterior was just armor. After dinner, she insisted on driving me back. When we got to my dorm, I got out of the car. Ms. Sterling, I had a really good time tonight, I said, standing by her window, my voice sincere. She looked at me, her eyes surprisingly soft in the darkness. Me too, she said. Just as I was about to turn and leave, I heard a thought in her mind that turned me to stone. He's actually not bad. If he wasn't my assistant, maybe I could give a shot. My brain went blank. About me. I stood there, frozen, watching her car drive away, my mind reeling long after she was gone. I think I had just stumbled across a line I never knew existed. From that night on, the air between Victoria and me grew even more charged. She still ordered me around, but her tone had lost some of its command, replaced by something I couldn't quite put my finger on. When I brought her coffee, her eyes would linger on my face for a second too long. When we attended galas, she would subconsciously stand a little closer to me, and I, in turn, was always able to coincidentally pick up on her secret thoughts. "We like this outfit?" He just smiled. Was he smiling at me? "I really want to see that new movie with him. How do I bring it up?" I felt like a player with a God mode cheat, watching her slowly let her guard down, piece by piece. The feeling was both sweet and suffocating. I loved the unspoken thing growing between us, but I was also terrified of it, because I knew it was all built on a lie. If she ever found out my secret, that every one of her private thoughts was an open book to me, how would she react? Would she be disgusted? Would she think I'd been playing her, manipulating her this whole time? I couldn't bear to think about it. One day, the company announced a celebratory banquet for closing the Henderson deal. As the key player, Victoria was the star of the show. Before the party, she called me into her office. "Tonight, you're my date," she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. "What?" I stammered. "Ms. Sterling, I don't think that's appropriate. I'm your assistant." "I say it's appropriate." She cut me off, grabbing a suit from a nearby rack and tossing it to me. "Go change." It was an Armani suit. The cut, the fabric. It was on a level I had only ever dreamed of. When I stepped out of the changing room, I saw Victoria's eyes light up. "Well, clothes really do make the man. Clean him up, and he's not half bad." She was mentally grading me. I awkwardly adjusted my tie. "Let's go," she said, standing up and naturally looping her arm through mine. Her arm was soft, and through the thin fabric, I could feel the warmth of her skin. My heart started racing again. When we walked into the ballroom together, every head turned. The same colleagues that used to whisper about me behind my back were now staring with a mixture of awe and envy. Victoria held her head high like a proud peacock, guiding me through the room. In that moment, I felt like a knight chosen by the queen. The feeling was intoxicating. Halfway through the party, Victoria was pulled away by a group of executives. I stood alone in a corner, watching her navigate the crowd with ease, a pang of sadness in my chest. No matter how special she made me feel, in a place like this, the distance between our worlds was vast. Just then, an unwelcome guest appeared. It was Chad Thompson, Jr., the guy I'd drenched in cocktail. He'd obviously seen me and was now strolling over, a nasty smirk on his face. Well, if it isn't Assistant Jake," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Who are you planning on spilling a drink on tonight?" I frowned, not wanting to engage. "What's the matter? Check out your tongue? Now that you've latched onto Victoria Sterling, you're too good for the rest of us." He leaned in closer, his voice low. "I'm giving you some friendly advice. Stay away from her. She's not for a broke nobody like you." "I don't think that's any of your business," I said coldly. Cocky, aren't we?" Chad sneered. "You really think she's into you? Dream on. You're just a convenient tool to her. A good little puppy who does what he's told. When she gets bored, you won't even know what hit you." His words were like needles, jabbing at my deepest insecurities. A tool? A puppy? He wasn't entirely wrong. My intuition, my competence, wasn't it all just because I could hear her thoughts and give her what she wanted? Without this ability, I was just a broke college kid. Would she even give me a second glance? What's wrong? Did I hit a nerve? Chad saw the look on my face and grew even more smug. "Listen to me, kid. Take the money and get out while you can. Don't wait until you end up with nothing." He patted me on the cheek, then turned and walked away. I stood there, my hand squeezing my glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. Every word he said had struck a chord. I looked over at Victoria, the center of attention. She was surrounded by people, a true queen, and I was just a clown by her side, easily replaceable. A wave of humiliation and anger washed over me. No, I wouldn't be a tool. I wanted her to see me, Jay Carter, not some mind-reading freak. I took a deep breath and made a decision. A crazy decision that could destroy everything I had built. I was going to tell her the truth. After the party, Victoria was flushed from the alcohol, her eyes a little hazy. I helped her out of the hotel. "I'll drive," I said. She didn't object, just tossed me the keys. I didn't drive toward her apartment. Instead, I drove to the waterfront. The night air coming off the water was cold. I parked the car by the riverbank and killed the engine. The only sound was our breathing. "Ms. Sterling, there's something I have to tell you," I said, mustering all my courage. She was leaning against the passenger seat, looking at me, her eyes glittering in the dark. she murmured, her voice soft with a hint of alcohol. I opened my mouth, but the words wouldn't come out. Confessing was so much harder than I'd imagined. What does he want to say? He looks so serious. Is he going to confess his feelings for me? Her thought hit me like a bucket of ice water. I gave a bitter laugh. Of course. That's what she would think. How could she ever imagine I was about to tell her I was a monster who could see into her soul? Ms. Sterling, do you remember the party where we first met? I tried a different approach. I remember, she said. You broke a tray of glasses and spilled a drink all over Chad Thompson. That night, I got an electric shock from a faulty speaker, I said. And ever since then, I've had this strange ability. She watched me, a flicker of curiosity in her eyes, as if I were telling her a story. I can hear people's thoughts. As the words left my mouth, I felt all the strength drained from my body. The car was plunged into a dead silence. The lazy, curious look on Victoria's face slowly froze. She sat up straight, her eyes fixed on me. Her expression was one of shock and disbelief. What did you say? She whispered, her voice trembling. I said, I can hear your thoughts. I repeated, looking her straight in the eye. From the first day we met, every single word you've thought. I heard it all. I saw her pupil's contract. Is he joking? That was the first thought that flashed through her mind. I know that the first time you saw me, you thought I was an idiot. I know you hated Chad and wanted to dump a drink on his head. I know your stomach wasn't really bothering you. You just didn't want an iced coffee. I know you liked that private kitchen on the west side, but you thought it was too far and a hassle to book. I know you thought I looked pretty good in a suit. And I know that tonight, at the party, when you looked at me, you thought, if I wasn't your assistant, maybe you could give a shot. With every sentence I spoke, the color drained from her face. By the end, she was deathly pale. She looked at me, her eyes filled with horror, shame, anger, and a deep, soul-crushing sense of betrayal. She looked like someone who had been stripped naked and put on display for the whole world to see. All her armor, all her pride, I had shattered it in an instant. So, she began, her voice hoarse and broken. Everything, all of it, it was all just a joke to you, wasn't it? No. I denied it desperately. I never thought of you as a joke. Then what were you? She suddenly yelled, like a wounded animal. A creep hiding in the shadows, spying on my every private thought, watching me make a fool of myself like I was some kind of circus act. I wasn't. You weren't. She let out a cold, bitter laugh as tears streamed down her face. You used my own thoughts against me, to get close to me, to make me like you, to make me think you were special. Jake, you're a real piece of work. Every word was a knife in my heart. She was right. That's exactly what I had done. I couldn't deny it. Get out. She stared out the window, forcing the words through her teeth. Victoria. I said, get out, she screamed, pounding her fist against the window. Get out of my car. I never want to see you again. Seeing her break down like that tore me apart. I knew that nothing I could say would ever fix the damage I had done. I opened the car door and stepped out. The river wind cut against my face like a razor. I watched the white Porsche let out a roar and speed away into the night. I knew I had lost her, and with her, I had lost the $20,000 a month job and the glamorous world I had so desperately wanted to be a part of. I was back to being Jay Carter, the broke college kid with nothing. I was fired. The next day, an email from HR landed in my inbox. The reason cited was a serious violation of company policy. No explanation, no evidence. I was kicked out of Starlight Capital just like that. I moved out of the corporate apartment and back into my dorm room. Leo and the guys were shocked to see me. Jake, what are you doing back here? I thought you and your sugar mama boss were off living the high life. I ignored him, dropped my bags on the floor, and collapsed on my bed. I felt like I had just woken up from a very long dream. In the dream, I wore expensive suits, went to fancy parties, and had a beautiful, brilliant boss. Now, the dream was over. My life was back to square one. No, it was worse than square one, because it felt like a part of me was missing. Without the constant background noise of Victoria's thoughts, my world was terrifyingly quiet. I started to miss her like crazy. I missed her icy expression and her witty, sarcastic inner monologue. I missed the way she would pretend to be elegant when she was secretly annoyed. I missed watching her slowly let her guard down, revealing the soft heart she kept hidden. And I had destroyed it all. For the next month, I was a ghost. I didn't look for another job. I just went to class, slept, and played video games. My brother, Kevin, came to visit once. He asked me carefully, Jake, did you and that boss lady break up? I didn't answer. Hey, don't be sad, man, he said, trying clumsily to comfort me. There are plenty of fish in the sea. She was kind of scary anyway. You're better off. I managed a weak smile. She wasn't scary. She just used a tough exterior to protect a soft heart. And I was the only one who had ever seen that heart, only to shatter it. One day I was in my room, zoned out in front of my computer, when Leo burst in. Holy crap. Jake, turn on the financial news. I scowled, ignoring him. Dude, stop playing. It's about your boss. My heart jolted. I immediately quit the game and opened a news site. A massive headline jumped out at me. Starlight Capital Director Victoria Sterling faces resignation after disastrous investment leads to massive corporate losses. Below the headline was a photo of Victoria being mobbed by reporters. She was wearing a black suit, her face pale and drawn, her eyes exhausted, surrounded by a sea of flashing cameras and microphones. Her usual queenly aura was gone, replaced by a deep, weary vulnerability. My heart felt like it was being squeezed in a vice. I clicked on the article. It said that an overseas acquisition deal led by Victoria had imploded due to an unforeseen change in local government policy, resulting in a nearly billion-dollar loss for Starlight Capital. And the project. It was the follow-up to the Henderson deal. My mind went blank. I remembered when we were working on that deal. I had heard a flicker of doubt in her mind. The risk of policy changes in this country seems a little high. We should run another round of due diligence. At the time, I was so eager to impress her that I'd used another piece of insider information to solve a different problem, and I'd let that detail slide. After I left, there was no one left to remind her. Was she too busy, or did she just trust the initial assessment and forget her own doubts? So, the root of this crisis was me. I had ruined her. The realization hit me like a lightning bolt. I couldn't just lie here wallowing in self-pity anymore. I had to do something for her. Even if she never wanted to see me again, I had to help her get through this. I leaped out of bed and ran out of the dorm. I took everything I had, the information I'd gathered over the past month, every fragment of her inner monologue about the project that I could remember, and I locked myself in the library for 3 days and 3 nights. I pored over hundreds of documents, cross-referenced countless data points, and finally, buried in an obscure appendix, I found it. A single detail that everyone had overlooked. A fatal flaw in the other company's story that could turn everything around. Clutching the file I had put together, I ran to the Starlight Capital building. I couldn't go inside anymore, so I stood outside and waited, from morning until night. Finally, I saw a familiar figure. She walked out of the building, looking even more haggard than in the photos, so thin it seemed like a gust of wind could knock her over. I ran and stood in front of her. She stopped, stunned to see me. Her eyes were filled with shock, disgust, and something else I couldn't decipher. What are you doing here? She asked, her voice cold and raspy. Did you come to laugh at me? No. I shoved the file into her hands. Victoria, listen to me. This deal isn't dead yet. Look at this. She glanced down at the hastily compiled report in her hands. She didn't open it. Instead, she looked up at me, her eyes filled with scorn. Not dead yet? Jake, did you hear another inside tip? No. I stared into her eyes, speaking each word with conviction. This time, there's no mind reading, no cheating. Every single word in that file came from me, Jake Carter, using my own brain to figure it out. She froze, looking at my bloodshot eyes and the stubble on my face. Trust me, one more time. I begged her. Just one last time. She was silent for a long, long time. So long that I thought she was going to throw the file in the nearest trash can. Finally, she clutched the file tighter and walked past me without another word. I watched her back disappear into the night, my heart a hollow pit of uncertainty. I didn't know if she would read it. I didn't know if it would even help. I'd done all I could do. The rest was up to fate. 3 days later, the financial news exploded with another bombshell. Miraculous turnaround. Starlight Capital's overseas deal revived as Sterling pulls victory from the jaws of defeat. The report said that Victoria had found evidence of concealed debt in the other company's books, completely flipping the situation. Not only had she averted the massive loss, but she had also leveraged the new information to secure even better terms for the acquisition. I watched the news clip of her back on the podium at a press conference. She was still thin, but the fire was back in her eyes. I smiled, and as I smiled, tears streamed down my face. That night, I got a call from an unknown number. Hello. There was a long silence on the other end. Just as I was about to hang up, thinking it was a wrong number, a familiar, raspy voice came through the line. Jake, it was Victoria. It's me. I'm outside your dorm. I flew down the stairs. Her Porsche was parked under a streetlight. She was leaning against the car, wearing a simple white sweater, watching me. We stood a few feet apart, saying nothing. I started. Are you okay? No, she said, shaking her head. Jake, I have to ask you a question, and I need you to be honest. Ask. She looked me straight in the eye and asked, her voice serious, if you didn't have that ability, would you still have feelings for me? I was stunned. I looked at her, at the way she had let down all her defenses, her eyes filled with a fragile hope. I thought about all our moments together, the way she acted tough when she was scared, the way she pretended not to care when she was worried, the way she had fiercely defended me, the way she had quietly prepared a first aid kit for my brother. I smiled. Victoria, I said, walking toward her, each step sure and steady until I was standing right in front of her. My feelings for you never had anything to do with that ability. I fell for the woman who gets annoyed when her shoes hurt her feet, the one who just wants to go home and pet her cat, the one who protects her people even when she's falling apart herself. I fell for the real person hidden underneath all that ice, Victoria. Her eyes reddened. A single tear escaped and traced a path down her cheek. This time, I couldn't hear her thoughts, but I knew what she was thinking. I reached out and gently wiped the tear away. Then, I leaned in and kissed her. This time, I wasn't her assistant, and she wasn't my boss. We were just Jake and Victoria. And